What sucks when you get married?
Finding out that your in-laws, who put up with you and tried to act nice till you got married, are really assholes that normal people don't want to deal with.
For better or worse includes the worse. When your spouse has a chronic health issue, a mental health issue, substance abuse problems, you have committed to be there for at least a reasonable effort in carrying through it together. That can be taxing beyond belief.
If it's forever, one of you is likely to die first. It wasn't.
It sucks when your partner and sometimes you get too comfortable and complacent. You start slacking on the little things that matter to each other. No one likes to have to remind their partner to do things they used to do automatically.
When you go through rough patches with your spouse, maybe you aren't spending enough quality time together, because life, or not having enough. So you fight, bicker more. Little annoyances become bigger problems. Until you finally talk through it and things get back on track.
Figuring out the balance between together time and alone time that works for both of out that it's okay to say, do you just want to vent, or do you want me to provide a solution? When your spouse goes does that, those realizations don't happen super early in marriage, so you realize all the lost time and go.
Having to split the holidays between the in-laws and always having someone mad because you can't be at two places at once. Sucks. Because all you want is a peaceful time. It gets worse once you have kids. They all want to see the kids, of course. We've since moved away from everyone and still get harassed about visiting, but with our health issues, it's hard to travel, so too bad, so sad. Lol.
Being a saver married to a spender.
Your spouse's family problems become yours.
Love my wife dearly, but she got into a habit of inviting friends and family to stay over with us for a weekend, and not telling me until the invitation was already took some time before I could convince her not to do that.
Having to deal with in-laws who don't play nice with others.
My family was annoying as during the whole process. Parents were constantly throwing out that was apparently tradition and we were crazy for not doing. Example, my mother was absolutely shocked to discover we weren't getting an engraved cake knife with our names and anniversary on. If you're going to make a joke about knives, about 40 people have already done it.
Not being on the same level of dishwasher organization.
The constant refrain of, when are you going to get married, from relatives turns into a constant refrain of, when are you going to have kids? And #X200B. My reply to both was that every time someone asked, I added 2 months to when we're planning it.
I lost my wife a few days ago. Marriage was the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. What sucks is when it's all gone. Everyone and moans about what they need to put up with when married, but honestly I'd go through it all for eternity if it meant she was still by my side.
Restaurant leftovers not still being in the fridge where you left them.
I've been married 29 years and I absolutely adore my wife, but sometimes the compromises aren't great. We do it out of love and devotion, but once in a while it sucks. Anything from going to family gatherings, to what to watch on TV, to home decorating. We each have our own hobbies and interests, so compromise is essential to a good marriage.
If you're young, having all the extended family bug you about when you're going to have kids.
Having to decide what to eat every night for the rest of your life while trying to accommodate the other.
Having to miss holidays with your own family.
The tax benefits aren't as great as you hoped.
When you leave a hang-up unaddressed from when you were dating.
Depends on what living situation you're used to. For me, I grew up an only child, and I had lived on my own for about 2 to 3 years before my wife and I got married. So I was used to being alone a lot of the time and I was pretty settled in my routines and general way of living. My wife on the other hand grew up with 6 siblings, never had her own room, had to share everything, and was used to noise and general commotion 24/7. So when she first moved into my house, there was definitely an adjustment period. I was used to just coming home and going straight to my home studio to work on music or to my living room to play video games, and having peaceful quiet alone time all night. But suddenly I had someone wanting to go out and do things when I got home from work, or wanting me to come to bed earlier than I want to. And #X200B. At first it was hard, working through differences in how we do most things. Which cabinet pots and pans should go in, if silverware should be mouth side up or down in the dishwasher, how many covers we like to sleep with, the AC setting at night, etc. But after like a couple months it worked itself out. We just kinda let each other be the way we are, and if there is a discrepancy in our opinions on how to handle things, we work it out. It's really not that hard. Just requires a little humility and patience.
Never having the bed to yourself.
Marriage is pretty great. I mean, I haven't killed a creepy crawly critter in like 9 years, but I do have to clean 100% of the toilets. So it's a balance.
Learning to vocalize your intentions. I'm thinking about not doing the dishes right now, maybe later, so don't get mad at me, instead of waiting until later to do the dishes, but running into a bunch of attitude about the pile dishes and then having to yell, but I was gonna. Nah, you need to vocalize your intentions, and so shines a good deed in a weary world. Thank you for the award, fellow 9Y Redditor smiley face. Number 2, thanks again for the love, kind Redditor.
Cancer. Cancer sucks when you're married. Sucks when you're not too, but does it when you're married?
Changing your name. It's such a nightmare.
Honestly, not much. Marry the right person and it should be the same as before. Marriage is nice. Someone always in your corner and vice versa. Smiley face.
All the married men telling your groom how awful marriage is and that nothing he wants, says, needs matters anymore in front of you. Sorry your life is so awful, but keep that to yourself.
Everything if you marry the wrong person. Nothing if you marry the right person.
Usually not your wife.
My buddy invited me to 2 BBQs weekends, one right after the other, and told me if I could only make one, make the second, invited the in-laws to the first and warned people. It was sort of like an aquarium, people were watching them. One guy kept bringing up gold, and I didn't understand until the father-in-law went off that gold was a scam, that Fort Knox was robbed long ago, etc. Weekend was twice as packed with a much more diverse crowd.
I'd always heard that my mill was controlling and narcissistic, but never really saw it. I thought it was cute, if maybe a bit weird, when we first got married and she started calling us both my kids. I did not realize she meant that as in I had literally become her property. That relationship went downhill to LC like a greased sled on an icy. Edited to add, LC equals low contact. Mill equals mother-in-law.
Yeah, a dead kid, and a lot of mental health issues later. We're still hanging on to each other for dear life. But we ain't the people we were when we got married. There's an episode of Mad About You where Jamie has good news but Paul got devastated by losing a job. Or maybe it was the other way around. Anyway, Jamie struggles at first, but ultimately decides to put her celebratory mood away, and just be present with Paul. That's not what marriage should always look like, but it does show the kind of selflessness that makes things work. When both people are doing that for each other.
Sorry for your loss. This is really the most legitimate answer.
Sorry for your loss. I think this story from Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl might make you feel better. Once, an elderly general practitioner consulted me because of his severe depression. He could not overcome the loss of his wife who had died 2 years before and whom he had loved above all else. Now, how can I help him? What should I tell him? Well, I refrained from telling him anything but instead confronted him with the question, what would have happened, doctor, if you had died first, and your wife would have had to survive you? Oh, he said, for her this would have been terrible, how she would have suffered. Whereupon I replied, you see, doctor, such a suffering has been spared her, and it was you who have spared her this suffering. To be sure, at the price that now you have to survive and mourn. He said no word but shook my hand and calmly left my office. In some way, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice.
It's worse when one person slacks and the other doesn't. There are so many things where my wife and I are supposed to alternate with, date nights, vacations, getting up with the kids, intimacy, but I do half and she never reciprocates. Like you said, it's tough to remind your partner. You either feel awkward asking for expected behavior or feel like you're nagging.
Or they don't and it all falls apart, but that is life too.
Ron Swanson. You've fallen into a classic trap, Christopher. Trying to fix a woman's problems instead of just listening to what they are. Tom Haverford. Hey man, if Anne needs Tylenol, she can get it herself. What she needs from you is to just look her in the eyes, nod your head, and say those two magic meagle That Traeger, that sucks. Tom Haverford. I've spent my entire life reading instructional books about relationships in order to trick women into liking me. When Anne tells you what's bothering her, don't try to fix it. Just say, damn, that.
This bothers me. The amount of, it's been 2 months, 11 days, 3 hours and 41 minutes since we saw grandchild, Ren, is absurd. You guys are retired. There's a lane in the road that comes specifically to our house and you can feel free to use it whenever you want. A note for grandparents out there. Life is busy. We're more than willing to accommodate you, but we can't always be the ones to travel 4 hours because there's a lot going on.